Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grig Media. Step into the world of farmers from diverse backgrounds across Australia. Through intimate interviews, host Darren Grigg delves into farming practices, traditions, and the challenges farmers face in nurturing the land.
I just hated eyes on me. Your whole body just burns and your skin, and you can feel yourself go red. It would be like that feeling when people just turned and looked at you. And I don't know where it came from or what it was. I just really didn't like being looked at.
Welcome to this special 4-part mini-series featuring the incredible Leila McDougall, the writer, producer and lead actress of the heartfelt and moving film Just a Farmer.
Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take.
This powerful movie takes audiences on an emotional journey through the life of a resilient farmer in rural Australia, shedding light on mental health struggles in the country and breaking down the stigma that surrounds them. Leila is a woman on a mission. Driven by compassion for people on the land, she's gone to extraordinary lengths to bring this story to life and start conversations that matter.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine. No, you're not, Alison.
In this episode, we hear of her personal story, from early learning difficulties and purposely avoiding the spotlight, to a Christmas Day boxing match in the country and her path into fashion design in the big smoke. We talk about what it took for her to push past fear, step out of her comfort zone, and how helping others gives her a natural high. And yes, she was even on Farmer Wants a Wife. She met her real-life husband shortly after the TV show and made the big move to a farm in Victoria, started a family, and then created a movie. Leila is truly extraordinary, and it was an absolute privilege to sit down and chat with her. Let's get into it. Good morning, Leila.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real honour to have you on Salt of the Earth Farm Stories to share your journey, your insights, and the incredible work you are doing to make a difference in mental health in rural communities. Firstly, congratulations on everything you've achieved so far. It's enormous. Can we go back to the start? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little small country town called Walker, which is in the tablelands of the New England. So it's a beautiful little country town. And yeah, that's where I grew up, just a normal country kid. Yeah, which was great.
On a farm?
No, so we weren't on the farm, but my parents leased a lot of land. We weren't born into land, as you know, it's pretty hard to get land if you're not born into it. So they did it the tough way, and they leased land and gradually built up and got some money and savings till they could eventually buy their own block. So yeah, as my dad sometimes says, he's like, oh, the only reason we had kids was for slave labour because couldn't afford anyone to work for him. So that was me and my brother. Yeah.
So what were your early memories of the land and where they were leasing ground? Was it working with animals or crops?
Sheep. So Walker is pretty well known for its fine wool. So we had a lot of merinos and fine wool, and the highlight of the year was having a week or 2 weeks off school for shearing and helping out in the shed and learning how to rouse about and throw fleeces and mustering, and then we ended up getting into a bit of cattle, but it was all mainly just livestock and grazing. Yeah.
So as a little kid you were in the shearing shed?
Yeah, yep, as kids, yeah.
Sometimes you're back doing that again now, are you?
Yeah, yep, I am now. That's it. I ran away. I was like, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to go to the city. I'm never going back to a farm. And then what do? I ended up marrying a farmer. So, did a full circle. But yeah, so pretty lucky. And I think that's growing up on the farm and having that work ethic and having parents as great examples that work hard. Is probably where my brother's got an amazing work ethic as well, and I think that's where it all comes from, is knowing you've got to put in the hard work to get the big bang, the achievement at the end.
Is he on the land up there still?
No, gosh, no. You wouldn't. Sometimes I think, does anyone even know he grew up on a farm and in the country? He lives in Newcastle. I don't even really know what he does. All I know is he's really high up in what he does. He very, very important, good with people, but he's just finishing off building the international airport in Newcastle.
Big
Yeah.
job.
Big job, yeah, like very stressful. He thrives on stress, he reckons. That's what he says. He's like, I love it. Love stress. And yeah, just got the gift of the gab, knows how to work with people and have build a good environment. So I guess, you know, he was the youngest foreman in Australia when he became a foreman. Yeah.
Wow. So a brother?
Yep, just a brother.
Right.
Little brother.
Now tell me about you as a kid. I believe you're perhaps a little bit shy.
Oh, crippling shy.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. Everyone now is like, whatever. You can't shut up. But no, I was really shy as a little kid. Like confident around your friends, like everyone is, and when you've got your little group. But being in a small town, your friendship group is quite small. I had my, 3 or 4 girlfriends that were, my security blanket whenever if I didn't go with them, I wasn't going anywhere. And yeah, school was probably the difficult part for me. Growing up, I was dyslexic and it wasn't picked up for ages. And my best friend, she was my safety blanket with my dyslexia as well. Like in class, when you go teachers, and they don't do it anymore, thank God. Well, some do, but they need to be told not to. But we go around and you say, "Oh, read out a sentence each in the book," and it goes round. And I'd count how many people were in front of me, and then I'd count the sentences and then practice that sentence. But there was always that one smart ass kid that could read 3 or 4 sentences, and then they'd throw me, and I'd be like, I don't know what sentence we're up to. So my girlfriend would always be sitting next to me, and she'd just whisper the sentence to me, and I'd just repeat what she was saying. Or same in all our maths exams and things, I'd just write down, I'd just copy her exam and change a few things so the teacher didn't know I was totally cheating. But yeah, I got away with it until the end of year 8.
But coming up for your time to talk, were you just burning inside, getting so nervous?
I'd get so nervous. I can't even explain the anxiety. And then even when it got to me, I don't even know if the words came out properly, because I just get so nervous. And in the end, sometimes they'd just skip me and be like, just won't worry about her.
Is it because of the attention was brought on you? Like I did hear that you would even purposely try not to win something to have that attention.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. Like I just hated eyes on me. When you burn, your whole body just burns, and your skin, and you can feel yourself go red. It would be like that feeling when people just turned and looked at you. And I don't know where it came from or what it was. I just really didn't like being looked at. Yeah, so it was quite bizarre. But then, that was the whole thing where it led to that when I moved to Sydney and studied fashion design, that I got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to get anywhere in life if this is how I'm going to be. Because even just, I got a job when I was in year 10, just working at the local pub, and I lasted a week because I was so paranoid when I was taking down people's orders. I couldn't spell what they'd ordered. And so I just avoid working on the floor because I'd rather be out the back washing dishes and things, because I couldn't even explain to people that I can't write. I'm scared to give my order sheet to the chef because he's going to think I'm dumb because I can't spell what people are ordering. And these were all little things that I just thought, was just me. I was just stupid, and I hid them all.
But was there ever anything said from the chef to say you've written it wrong?
No, because that's dyslexic people are really good at hiding it because they don't want people to know. It's like well known that that's what dyslexics do. They're really good at hiding it, and that's how I got to year 9 with no one picking it up. Like when I'd be quickly looking at the menu and copying the letters that that were on the menu to get what they were. I'd be like, oh, what number was that? And then so I could go back. And before I could remember exactly what they'd said, because I've got a really good memory. And then I'd quickly go somewhere else and copy the menu and write it down and then take it in.
Wow.
So that no one would ever catch that I couldn't spell.
So what about at a school sport or something like netball or a running race or something, when you were throwing the ball perhaps at netball, did you feel that anxiety?
No, so sport was something that my dad, like that was his outlet for his mental health. Like he always said to us, like, sport is so good for your mental health. And when he quit drinking, he threw himself into coaching every sport that we played, and we had to play everything. So team sport was good, but it was just when you're up on that platform, like getting an award at assembly or something. But when you're playing a sport, it's in our genetics. There's a little bit of competitive gene there, and when you're in a team, you've got to perform for the team because you'll let them down. So it was a different environment. Loved sport.
It's a big challenge at a young age, and I want to hear a little bit later about how you work through that. But did I hear you were perhaps a little bit of a tomboy in your youth?
Tomboy, I know, and we don't say that anymore, do we? Like tomboys, but I've never heard someone say someone's a tomboy anymore. But yeah, I was. I had I even had a little crew cut. Yeah, and then when I got my ears pierced, my mum, wouldn't let me get my ears pierced until I was old enough to look after them myself. And then when I was eventually old enough to get them done, I jumped on the second one because I was like, geez, that first one hurt. And then on the next one I jumped and it went through crooked. So I had to take it out and let it heal up. But for nearly a year and a half, my mum didn't take me back to get
You just had the one?
So I just had one. So I had a little crew cut and one earring. So I really did just look like a little boy. I think it was a defense mechanism for my parents so boys thought I was a boy.
Yeah.
But I just loved being able to just, I wasn't a girly girl. I loved girl things and things, but now I think girls are really lucky we get to be both. We can play sport and be rough and tumbly and also have a feminine side as well. Whereas, I felt like when I was a kid, it was a bit weird to be both because, I loved clothes and fashion and all those things, but then I also loved being out with my brother and cousins and doing boy things and, what they call boy things and playing rough and Christmas times we were a bit feral. It was fun we only had one pair of boxing gloves and we'd have one each and the other hand had to be behind your back and it was just last man standing.
Oh,
and we used to love that stuff, but now, it's okay for girls to be that, but I used to think I can hold my own with these boys, but there did come a point where they would definitely physically outstrength me. But in those earlier years where boys and girls are at a level, I used to think that was pretty tough.
And you mentioned before fashion designing.
Mm-hmm.
So you've gone from boxing to getting your hands dirty to fashion designing. What age were you here, and how did that come about?
I was always very creative, and I'm lucky. Women on my mum's side of the family were all very creative, very, love sewing and making things, painting, drawing. Some things are just genetically in you, aren't they? You've got a gene or a talent that comes through. My great uncle was the Raja of India's portrait painter.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, so we've got one of his paintings, and the rest are all in India over there. So it's amazing how it carries through. But I just have a knack for being able to see clothes, see something that can be made, and I know what pattern pieces need to go together to make that. And my mum and nan picked that up when I was young. I used to be able to make clothes from nothing for my dolls and things, and they were like, oh, this is quite complex for someone your age to be able to do that.
And with some learning issues too.
Yeah, so I was just a very visual, hands-on person. So yeah, I was very lucky then when I went away to Negs, they focused on my strengths rather than my weaknesses, and my strength was being in the textiles room and the art room, and I used to hide away in there during chapel and different things, and I used to think no one had any idea I was in there. They all knew what I was missing. Oh my God. But yeah, I was just lucky that they really pushed me and helped my skills grow, and then ended up getting into that. And it was more, it's not the fashion industry I enjoy. That's probably why I'm not in it anymore as a fashion designer. I resent the fashion industry for how it, manipulates trends and the psychology of people to try and get them to buy more and more and more. I think I like the design side and fabrics and the craftsmanship that goes into making good quality clothes. That's the side of it I really enjoy.
And where did you study that?
At KVB, or Ruffles Institute, I think they call it now, of Commerce and Design. It was in North Sydney when I was there, but it's out in Parramatta now. Yeah.
So how did a quiet, shy little country girl go living in the city?
I know, it was really funny. It was seriously like Coyote Ugly. You just throw this chick. I was even working at a Greek nightclub, which was even funnier. Yeah, he goes, why are you working at a Greek restaurant? You're not Greek. And yeah, it was really interesting. And that's for the first 6 months I knew how to get from work to home, uni to home, and the supermarket and home, and that's it. I didn't venture off that path, and then I had to sort of think to myself, yeah, shit, I'm not getting anywhere if this is how I'm going to be. I've got to start pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and then got addicted to pushing myself out of my comfort zone and doing weird shit.
That's my next question. How did this shy country girl get into a Miss Showgirl competition?
So Miss Showgirl, they were more when I was a kid. That's
Right.
what someone, well, not a kid, a teenager, and one of my teachers said this would be good for Leila to do a bit of public speaking, and that was like terrifying. But it was still good fun. But I thought to myself, how am I going to get myself like on stage and doing things? And I'd done that Miss Showgirl as a kid, and I thought, okay, what's the next level of that I can keep doing? So yeah, that's when I entered a few like beauty pageants, I guess you could call them. Even did a bit of bikini modeling. So if you're like on stage in a bikini, like
You've got all eyes on you.
yeah, what could I be scared of? If
Yeah.
I can do that, I can do anything. That's what I was telling myself.
This is a big leap.
Huge. No idea what I was there, but I met some amazing people doing it, and entering all these competitions and just really pushing myself outside of my comfort zones.
And I love that about you. You've always pushed yourself to meet challenges, even if you feared the process. And I'm sensing on stage, you would have feared that big time.
Oh yeah, the first few times you do it, the anxiety is just next level. But then it's also anxiety is how you shape it and make yourself feel when you feel that feeling of anxiety. And if you learn to enjoy anxiety, it's completely different.
We all need to learn that.
Yeah, and I actually now am at a point where I'm like, I want to feel that feeling again. Like I want to know what it's like to be nervous to do something. So I'll just throw myself into doing something just to see if I'll sink or swim. It's a bit weird.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I just think,
Yeah.
how am I going to do?
And do you think you thrive? Like nerves, I often say with different shoots I'll go and do, if I don't get a bit nervous the night before or before the shoot, it'll turn to shit.
Yeah.
But if I get a bit, nerves are often good, aren't they? You can use them.
Yeah, and
as a
nerves
power.
just mean you care,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? Like if you go into something and you're not nervous and you don't really care, like you're kind of almost disrespecting the process in a way, because you do you care enough to let yourself be nervous? You get better at controlling the nerves, but they're not going to go away. Like every time, even before I get up and do a keynote talk, I'm just like, oh, and then you just settle into it and you're like, this is fun, enjoy it. Not everyone gets this privilege to do this.
Well, I
And,
did
yeah.
have a few nerves before I was going to interview you, but you're making me feel really good, so thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, and I think just it's that country banter with people. Like, so yeah, some people you can relate to, and sometimes you're like, oh, where's this conversation going to go?
So at this point, did you start to gain some confidence? You've been up on stage and you wanted to help other kids too that had some learning issues, and you took on teaching. Would that be after fashion designing?
Yeah, so while I was in Sydney working at the Greek nightclub Mythos in Leichhardt, if anyone knows it, it's still there.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, a girl I worked with, Rosie, she is a Kiwi, and she was looking for a new flatmate to move in with her and Tom. I was like, yeah, because it was free rent, whatever. And she's like, we've just got to where Tom's live-in carer. And I was like, how hard can that be? And so 18 moved in with Tom and Rosie, and Tom's since passed away, but he had Down syndrome. So we were his live-in carers, 18, basically with my own child, going to uni, working. I did grow up pretty quick, but living with Tom was probably one of the best experiences of my life.
Really?
Like some of the things the bizarre situations he'd put us in or get us into, but it just gave me an appreciation for helping people does really make you feel good. And that was one thing Dad always said to us as kids, and Mum as well. Like, you can drink all the alcohol you want or do drugs and whatever, but there's no better high than the one you get from helping others. And that was my first real experience of like, wow, this actually does make you feel good when you help other people. And he was just a laugh too. Like, so, he'd go missing on us at night and different things.
Purposely?
Purposely, yeah. Or he'd just go do his own thing, and we'd be like, where's Tom? Like, he should be home. And this one night we could not find him, and we're like, it's bloody 9:30, and we've been looking for like 3 hours. I don't know if we're gonna have to call the police or what we are. And I thought, hang on, I haven't checked the service station, because sometimes he goes around the corner to the service station. I went round there, and here he is, propped up in a big semi-truck, eating a pie with a can of Coke. And I went, Tom, what are you doing? And he just goes, oh, sorry about that, Leila. And the truckie just goes, oh, you can talk.
Oh, no.
Oh, he was so clever. So apparently he just went up to this truckie and was just rubbing his tummy like he was hungry. And this guy's just bought, and he's diabetic.
Yeah.
So he knows he's not allowed to eat it, but he had this guy totally fooled. And then here he was. Oh, and he'd just do just the funniest things. He was very clever and knew how to get his way. But then there were parts of it where people didn't know much about people with Down syndrome and just assumed that they could be violent or, untrustworthy and things. And when we'd go to some places and there were kids around, it used to break my heart when parents would like try and guide their kids away from Tom. And I'd be like, he's the sweetest person I know. Or he had a diabetic episode on me once, and they are so strong, people with Down syndrome. And he had an ultra high and went into like a bit of a fit. He flipped the couch.
Yeah.
He had me in a headlock on the floor, and I had to. And his mum was one of the most beautiful people. She's a psychologist in maximum security. She's an amazing woman, and she had it written on the wall really big, like our address, our phone number, everything. And she said, if there's ever an emergency and you don't know what's going on, she said, just read out what's on that wall to the emergency services on the other end. And I always thought, I'll be fine. Like, as if I'm going to forget where I live. And when I was on the phone, I just remember going, thank God she had that on the wall, because I just had to read that out to them. And then when the ambulance came, they had to kick the door in to get in.
You were still in the headlock?
Yeah, I was still in a headlock because he was just freaking out and didn't want me to leave him.
He didn't want to hurt you?
No, he didn't want to hurt me. He just wouldn't let me go. I just had to sit there with him. And when they came in, I just started crying with Tom because he hated needles, and they had to give him. And I'm like, I hate needles too, Tom.
And they had to knock him out a bit.
Yeah, just to give him that needle so that his sugar levels would get back to where they needed to be. Yeah, and then we had to try and work out why he had this episode and things. And he just, because he'd sneak and get lollies on his way home from his program through the day, or miss a meal or do different things. But yeah, so living with him was when I went, I want to help people. How can I do that? And that's when I went into teaching. Yeah.
Geez, you've taken that to a whole new level now, haven't you?
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a sec. How old was Tom at that age?
28, yeah, when I was with him, and I was 18. Yeah.
Right. And what age was he when he passed?
He was almost 40.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So teaching, when did you take on that?
I started my teaching degree. I did a dip ed when you were allowed to do dip eds. Don't do a dip ed anymore. In 2009, 10.
Right. And
and 11, but I did it sort of part-time because I had to work and do things at the same time.
And was this to perhaps build resilience in students and other kids to help with what you went through? Yeah,
kind of, but then also, like, I loved how my teachers helped me, and I thought if I could be that teacher for another kid, because they always say, like most people that go into teaching, it's because they had a really inspiring teacher at some point in their life, and they thought, I want to be able to do that for another kid. So I had Mrs. Thomas, who was my textiles teacher, and Mrs. Cunningham, my art teacher, and then Mrs. Ashley, my teacher aide. So those three women were my saving grace when I was at school, and I'm still in contact with them now.
Are you?
Yeah, Mrs. Cunningham sent me a little
the teacher aide, or
no, so my art teacher. Well, I'm in touch
really?
with all of them, but yeah, Mrs. Cunningham, last year, sent me a photo of a letter I wrote her when I was in Year 9. It was so cute. I was like, oh my God, I really couldn't spell.
And you keep in touch now. Wow, she would be proud of you.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And that they remember me as well, because I know, like being a teacher, you end up teaching thousands of kids over your time, and to think they still remember who I am too. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I'm thinking now you're in your early 20s, and a good friend of yours nominated you to be on Farmer Wants a Wife.
Yeah.
And this initially was a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
But you got in.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's the same best friend that used to read me my life, in class. Yeah. So we've been best friends since we were very little. We're still best friends.
What's her name?
Ash Barnett.
Ash.
And she still lives in Walker. Yeah, hi Ash. She's still my go-to for everything, and her. I don't think there's anyone else in my life that, except my husband, that I trust more. It's like that. That Kevin Hart thing where he goes, when we signed up for best friends, your bullshit is my bullshit, and my it's us. That's us. It. Yeah. So yeah, she thought it'd be funny to do that to me, because I was sort of a bit lost and was a bit down because I wasn't in a relationship, and I was like, oh, no one loves me, you know. So she's like, oh, this will be funny. Let's put you on Farmer Wants a Wife. And then I get this phone call saying I was going to be on it, and I'm like, nah, don't remember that. And they're like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, did I? And then I instantly thought, I just like, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no,
Oh,
Ash.
you've done this.
Yeah.
This is funny. Yeah. And then I told my parents, and Dad threatened to disown me if I went on the show. He clearly didn't. But it was my nan that actually convinced me that I should do it, because she just said, you know, what do you got to lose? The best lesson is like in life is from experience. It's going to be an experience. So I thought, okay, righto, I'll have a go. Maybe she just wanted her granddaughter on TV. I don't know, but so she can brag to all her legacy friends. But
That's right. Did you have any idea of an emotional roller coaster that it would be?
No, I was not, and I was still very young and naive. So I was 20 when I was on it, and very impressionable, and I didn't realize how emotional it would be. It was probably one of the most emotional, you know, roller coasters. I could almost say it was emotionally traumatizing.
Right.
I would never do anything like that ever
Yeah.
again. Yeah. So I think if you're going to go on a show and it's about your feelings, and you know, and love is something that's so important, and it shouldn't be a game. Yeah, I think people really need to think about why they're going on those shows, and if they're someone who feels things really deeply, like I do feel things really deeply, it's probably not the best thing for them to do that, because I just, you know, I take on so much, and I take on other people's energy as well. So it probably wasn't, looking back, probably wasn't a good decision for me to do, but I didn't know myself like I know myself now. And then had I not gone on the show, I would never have met my husband.
That's right. We'll get to that in a sec. Obviously, you're true to yourself, and perhaps in that show you couldn't be yourself.
No, I think there's this misconception, I think, around reality TV where they say, oh, they made me look like this, or, you know, they edited it to look like this. Those words still came out of your mouth, and you still did those things. So they're still it's still you, but they can manipulate the situation you're in. So for example, like my biggest thing was like, I was never kissing that farmer on TV because my nan had to watch this. Like, you know, now they mac out all the time on there. But I was like, nah, no way, not even a peck. Like, nah.
Come on,
Well,
Leila.
no, it's so boring. And they sat us in a hot tub for 2 hours and they wanted us to kiss. And I'm like, not happening.
No, good on you.
I'm just going to sit. I'm like, my nan has to watch this. My dad has to watch this. Like,
And
I
if
don't
you
want
don't
to.
want to kiss him.
Exactly. And I don't want to embarrass them. I think that's my biggest thing. I do everything because I want to make, you know, I should never do things for other people, but I always look back and go, okay, if what I'm doing, I want to make my family and the people I love proud. And if my parents seen me kissing someone else on TV, like my dad would have been mortified. He would have been so embarrassed. He's got to walk down the street and everyone going, I seen Leila kissing an old mate on TV. Like it would have killed him.
So that season you won the farmer that season, didn't you?
Yeah.
But as soon as filming finished, it was over. Is that right?
Yeah, no, we were never together. It was never anything, but we were the happily ever after story that they wanted to create. And it's funny, like the same season, I was on the show with Charlie Norton, who also grew up in Walker. Like we grew up together.
Oh,
He was
serious?
only a year ahead of me at school, and he used to kind of see Ash a
Yes.
little bit. So it's kind of like, oh. And so that's why Ash didn't put me with him when she was putting in the form, because she's like, you already know Charlie, like this isn't going to work. So yeah, it was quite interesting that he did that. And like the day filming ended, he was like, let's go home to Walker to the show and we'll get you, like we'll meet someone at home. And I was like, no, Charlie, I know everyone in Walker. Like, no, it's not going to happen. And that's, yeah, we went home for the local Walker show and we went to the bar and Charlie just goes, we don't know that bloke standing over there. Let's go talk to him. And it's my husband.
This is Sean.
Yeah.
You're serious?
Yeah. And we've been together ever since. So it's, yeah, had I not gone home, it's a real notebook story. We met at the local fair.
So you saw this guy and you went and approached him?
No, Charlie did. So Charlie's like invites him into the conversation, and Charlie's really good. He's like, if I make the conversation like really awkward, it can only go up from there. So he's like, oh yeah, Leila, I reckon he's pretty good looking too. And I'm like, but he's right. How much it couldn't get any more awkward than that. And yeah, we just hung out ever since.
Wow. And tell me about Sean. What sort of a person is he? He's a farmer?
He's a farmer, yeah, and
He has to be a good guy then?
Yeah, he has to be a good guy. He's probably one of the hardest working people I know. He's just beautiful in every way, I guess you could say. Like he's a man of few words, and like, you know, I'm like, I talk all the time and no one listens, and you say 3 words and everyone does what you say.
Go, Sean.
Yeah, but he's a man of very few words. But when he talks, people listen. He loves his footy, sports his thing. And yeah, he's just my biggest fan, and I'm so lucky because I think, you know, it sounds horrible, but in this day and age, I still have friends that say, "Oh, my husband had never let me do all of this that you do," and I'm like, "What the hell do you mean let you?" It's like my husband doesn't have a choice. He just has to. He's just on for the ride. Like he doesn't control me. You know, but he like, you know, he helps me make decisions, and yeah, he just pushes me to do my best and supports all of my crazy ideas. And yeah, I'm very lucky, and he's a great dad. Like, I'm off doing this all the time and he just picks up all the pieces. So I'm very lucky.
So at this point, you've met Sean, you're in Walker, but he's got a farm in Western Victoria.
Yes. Yep.
And what sort of farm is this?
Sheep, cattle and cropping. Yeah, mainly livestock, but yeah, just a little bit of cropping.
Are there different farming practices down that way than what you learnt when you were at Walker?
Yeah, it's a different landscape. It's flat. Like, it's not, for Victoria, it's not flat. But when I grew up in Walker, like, we're a hill country. So, you know, definitely not as many tractors. It doesn't get as dry during summer. So it's like there's no crops really in Walker for harvesting because it doesn't get that dry. We did a lot of our mustering and cattle work and sheep work on the horses. There's a lot bigger horse culture once you get north.
Yeah.
Go further north. So there was a lot, like the horses around Walker and the New England, Tamworth. Everyone has a horse, whereas in Victoria you're a bit like, they're like, oh, you got horses. Oh, geez, you can let your wife have a horse, Jesus. Whereas I was like, oh, you know, so I'm a professional collector. To call myself now, I collect horses. But yeah, it was a bit different, and the fire thing was the biggest difference for me. Like, we don't really have a lot of fires during summer in the New England, and when I came down here, and just the awareness around fire and always having fire breaks and different things, and even just burning off a paddock of stubble. I remember burning off my first paddock of stubble, and I was on the back of the truck to put out all the fires, but no one actually taught me how to do it. They just assumed I knew because I come from a farm, but it was completely different.
Yeah.
And here I am, I'm like, you know, in my head, you start at the bottom of the fire and try and put it out, and then the fire got away on me, and I'm like, what the? And they're like, no, you need to go over the top of it to smother it. And I'm like, well, no one told me that. So here we are trying to get control of this little paddock fire because I had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, it was a bit different.
And in that cropping country too, if the wind comes in quicker, it can travel. Fire can travel very fast, can't it?
Yeah, it does. And so I guess, and it's a scary sound because I've never really been around fire at all, and that sound and that crackle and the heat that can come off it. And this is just a burning stubble fire, let alone a bushfire. So now I always get so worried when my husband gets called to a fire or something because he's in the local brigade. But yeah, that was probably one of the biggest differences and, you know, always having to have fire breaks and fire hazards, and they're things we never worried about around home when I was growing up.
So cropping and sheep, was this wool sheep or meat sheep?
Mainly merino for wool, and then a little bit of crossbreds for the meat, and then the cattle. Yeah.
So then you moved to Western Victoria and joined the family farm. This is how many generation?
So yeah, my husband's 6th generation
Wow.
farmer there. Yeah, so my kids are 7th, which is pretty cute. And
how was this feeling to move into this family farm?
yeah, no, Sean's family is very welcoming and welcomed me with open arms. You know, my father-in-law, because my husband was working in Walker for 12 months for his middle year out at Marcus. And my father-in-law says a joke because he's working on a merino stud in Walker, and my father-in-law says he was meant to bring home a stud ram, not a wife. So yeah, he got me instead of the stud ram. But yeah, it's a big transition when you move so far away from your family and your support network and your friends, and have to kind of start all over again. I look back at people when they moved to Walker, and you could see it was really hard for them, but didn't do anything to help them.
Yeah.
And now I get what that was like when you move to a new community where no one knows who you are. They don't know, like, they didn't know me growing up. They don't know me as eccentric, creative Leila that does random things. You know, like, everyone just knew who I was at Walker.
Yeah.
And like, people had to learn who I was through Sean. And the netball footy culture in Victoria is like, I can't play netball to save myself. We didn't grow up playing netball, and it's a kind of sport you've got to play as a kid to understand it. Like this whole no stepping thing, what the hell is that? So I tried to play, but I was absolutely atrocious. I spent more time laying on top of the opposition than I did standing next to them because I played soccer. So, and you're not allowed to put your arms out in netball, but that's all you do in soccer is have your arms out. So it was a big transition, and just the all day at footy on and netball on sad days and things. And I was really anxious going, that social anxiety came back again of being like, how do I go and talk to people that have no idea who I am? Because it's different when you go into a bunch of strangers, you're going to see them once and probably never see them again. You don't really care. But when you've got to create this image or not, or be someone they like because you think you're going to be here, well, you hope you're going to be here forever, you want people to like you. And it's really, really daunting.
So how many acres?
3,000 acres. Yeah, so big enough, keeps my husband very busy.
The tractors have got a bit bigger and there's headers and trucks.
Yeah, all this machinery, was not used to all this machinery. Like sometimes I even think now, I'm like, this is a bit excessive. Like, why do we need all these things? Like, why do we need 3 tractors? Like, seriously. It's like, it just makes life easier. I'm like, well, and I always just think, when I was a kid, we just pushed hay bales off the back of the ute instead of needing this feeder that rolls them out. I'm like, we just got to do it a bit tougher.
And it's all expensive stuff too, and some of it sits in a shed for 11 months of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, like the header, you just think, like, no wonder they have so many breakdowns, because the motor's going flat out for like 6, 7 weeks and then doesn't do anything for 11 months, 10 months of the year. Like, no wonder, because it's always cold and then it starts up and constant breakdowns. But the machinery is a big thing. And every time I get into the tractor, I've got to kind of reteach myself how to drive the bloody thing, because you've got to be constantly driving something or doing it to remember. And then I get back in, and now my son is like, I ring my husband when we're in it because we're harrowing my horse arena, and I'm like, what button do I need to press? And I'm on the phone to my husband, and then Vincent goes, you need to press this button, and I'm like, you're 9.
Yeah.
Love
it.
It's been a big difference, but yeah, I love it. But I do miss my family.
Yeah.
Like being that far away from mum and dad, and I do miss my brother. We've always been really close, and I'd love my kids to grow up closer to him and his kids. And my best mate Ash, like, I just miss going riding with her, and my nan. I really miss my nan. Emotional. I sometimes feel guilty that I'm not spending enough time with her.
How old's Nan?
90.
Yeah.
This year.
Well, she'll be missing you too.
Yeah, no. When I talk to her like nearly 3 times a week, which most people.
Do you really?
Yeah. We give each other a call, and normally when I'm on the road, which is a good time for me, I do a lot of my calls when I'm on the road. But she's been a big influence in my life. Yeah.
And a big support. Is she listening and watching all your social media things and the movie, of course?
Yeah, so she's 90 and she has Facebook, and she's up on, she's hilarious, and she likes your comments, and she's always puts this bird emoji on the end of her comments. I'm like, what's with the bird? Like, I don't even know what it means. And shares things, and she's all up with Facebook, and she's got an email account, like address, and so she's great. But she's always very proud of what we're doing, and she's always just pushed me. Like, and sometimes she's like, oh yeah, you're doing it. And I'm like, Nan, it's your fault I'm such like a pushy woman, because I'm like, you can't say it's me. Like, you've created me. And she's also the other reason why I'm with my husband. I remember she was at the show with us. Like, I drove up with her. She picked me up and drove me up, because I used to come up with her. And Sean got an ice cream and brought it back to the house with mum and dad and everyone there that afternoon after we'd met the night before. And Nan, just being the cheeky turd she is, she's like, where's my ice cream? And he's like, oh, I can go and get you one. Like, oh. And then after that, she's like, I like him, Leila. You've got to snag him before anyone else does.
Oh, go man.
Yeah. So Nan, she's always been a good. So sometimes I say to her, I'm like, it's your fault I'm all the way down in Victoria, because you told me that I had to snag Sean.
She sounds amazing, and hopefully you get to record her story soon. We chatted about it earlier.
Yeah. She's got an amazing story, and to think, in her lifetime, you just think what she's seen. She grew up where they had one pair of shoes between 4 kids, and whoever rode the push bike, they got to wear the shoes because the others had to sit on the push bike. And with no power, and having a buggy, and remembering when her brother, like the first car came out, and her brother got a car. So she was the youngest of four, and she had three older brothers. So she was pretty rough and tumble too. So yeah, that's probably a farming background as well. So she grew up on a dairy farm, and her mum was actually the one that ran the dairy farm, and her dad worked on the railways, and he came. We now know, I was saying before, like with PTSD when they came back from war, but her dad fought at Gallipoli, and he was a stretcher bearer on the beaches. He needed to be around other men on the railway, and that was their way of coping. He couldn't, when he got back, he couldn't be out on the farm and with the kids and stuff. So he worked on the railways and would come home, either on weekends or once a month, and then go back and work on the railway. Yeah.
Wow, he would have seen some horrific stuff.
Mm.
That wraps up part A with the amazing Leila McDougall. Such an interesting girl. Next week in part B, Leila opens up about the well-being struggles within her own family, the incredible story behind raising over $60,000 for mental health in the middle of a canola crop, and how she took her message to the world stage. Be sure to tune in, you won't want to miss it. In the meantime, follow us on social media. And as always, keep your hands dirty and your spirits high.